And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Allison Maloney along with Bob Sellers. California congressional candidate Joe Collins recently filed a complaint to the House Ethics Committee requesting an investigation into the actions of his opponent, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. In his letter to the Ethics Committee, Collins says Congresswoman Waters is a threat to all conservatives in the U.S., and she's not the type of leader Americans deserve. Joining us now to discuss is former Republican congressional candidate in California, Joe Collins. Joe, thanks for joining us. Sir, tell us a little bit about your complaint, because I know we've had you on before. We've seen some of her Facebook lives. We've seen some tweets. Talk to us more about this complaint.
Yeah, so throughout our 2020 campaign, it's been a total mess, and Maxine Waters has been a catalyst for people in America who are Democrats to harass and incite violence against conservatives. And Maxine Waters has said plenty of times that she'll never forgive Black men who want to align themselves with the Republican Party or President Trump. She has said, don't show your face. She has said, push back and show people that you're not welcome here. And this is something that holds true because throughout our election campaign, we have had guys come to our events and brandish weapons to try to intimidate us, to try and stop us from running for office. And these are things that we have to go through on a regular basis. And so I think now it's time for these Democrats to be held accountable for their actions.
So when you say they should be held accountable, what is it you think there should be as a remedy? What do you hope will happen?
Well, these politicians who are dangerous, like Maxine Waters, like the lady from Michigan who says Trump supporters need to stand by and use force against them, they need to be in jail. To be honest with you, they need to be removed from office and they need to be put in jail because this is politics. This is not some type of video game where you can go around and make these type of comments and expect people not to take it serious and actually do something to conservatives. We see in Washington, D.C., and we see across the country how liberals and conservatives are getting into fights and it's starting to get violent. People are getting stabbed, people are getting shot, and this kind of rhetoric has to stop.
Joe, why do you think this is happening? You mentioned Maxine Waters, also Cynthia Johnson. She did that Facebook Live. Why are politicians acting this way?
Because they're not being held accountable. Nobody is filing these complaints. Nobody is pushing back on these politicians and saying, you know what? You represent the entire United States. You represent entire districts, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, but everybody. And they don't understand that when you have this type of influence, when you say things that entice violence or insinuate violence, you're putting people's lives on the line. And so they're not being held accountable. And the House Ethics Committee, they need to start enforcing their bylaws. They need to start enforcing their rules on their politicians.
How are things going in California? I forget which district you, Maxine Waters, where's that located?
We're in the 43rd district, and California is an entire mess. Businesses are leaving. People have lost
what
jobs.
Cities? What cities are you part of?
We have Inglewood, we have South LA, Gardena, Harbor City,
Gotcha.
Lomita, Torrance. Those are the major areas that we represent.
And that's a challenging area for the economy on a regular basis. And right now, it's probably getting a lot of the brunt of the shutdowns, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know for our campaign, whenever the shutdown had started, we hired a lot of people from the community, and the money that we raised and went back to help take care of people in our community. Whereas you have Maxine Waters, who paid her daughter $240,000 in one general election year, which is still appalling to myself.
Joe, we know the governor is issuing more shutdowns. I'm sure you've been talking to business owners. What are people saying there?
Well, they're starting to file lawsuits against Gavin Newsom, which is a good thing. And the courts are actually siding with the people. He has so many shutdowns in place that are not backed by science. And it's time to get on board the recall effort and get rid of Gavin Newsom as well.
Joe, I'm kind of curious. You know, the president said something a few years ago which offended some people, but to the African American community, he said, what have you got to lose? But when it comes to some of the areas in that district, they've had so many challenges economically and socially. I'm kind of curious why they keep reelecting Maxine Waters. I mean, why don't they give something else a chance?
Well, I'll tell you this. We did a really good job in this election. We pulled almost 80,000 votes, which was unheard of. in a heavily Democratic district. And even my former Republican opponent, Omar Navarro, actually worked with Maxine Waters to help her run a slander campaign. But I think one of the biggest things is because she has been in office for such a very long time, people feel comfortable with her. She has gotten people to call her Auntie Maxine for some reason. And nobody has ever pointed out a lot of issues that we have in our community, like the fact that she became a millionaire in Congress and she lives in a huge mansion, one out of, about 6 or 7 mansions. Nobody has pointed out the issue that 43% of our district is living below the poverty line. And so these have been a lot of things that we have been able to highlight, but we're starting to move people out of their comfort zone. We're starting to get people to vote across lines. We're starting to get people to understand that politicians are supposed to represent entire districts, not just the political party that they side with. And that's something that a lot of people have been getting on board with the messaging that we've been pushing through the community. So whenever we gear up to run again in this 2022 election, we look forward to a win.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the progress you've made. And that district definitely needs to have somebody like yourself pushing it forward and trying to develop it and getting some positive news in there. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more of American Agenda after this.